Explain like I'm 5. How did humans survive in bitter cold conditions before modern times? I'm thinking like Native Americans in the Dakotas and such. There's a lot of bits and pieces to a whole answer. Here are some. Furs have already been mentioned. But skins like deer hide are extremely important too. They really cut the wind, and are super flexible as well. Perfect for clothes like mittens or waterproof boots. Humans were tough. They got used to extreme cold. They stayed inside when it was brutal and lived off of stores, and only went outside when it was not. And they knew to expect it, and to be prepared for it, unlike us who just assume the electric grid will come back on soon if it goes out. When the wallop and storm happens, we're caught unawares. A huge part of their year was preparing for it. Firewood, properly dried and preserved, makes a lot of heat when you burn it in a small dwelling that's windproof. Get a fireplace built with a lot of rocks, for thermal mass, and a good draw, to move smoke outside. Have a few cords of collected firewood that's close, and it'll be warm for a long time. You can avoid a lot of blistering cold by living in forest as opposed to in the open. A stand of trees will cut a phenomenal amount of wind. We don't see that as much now because few houses don't have lawns or open areas around them, but a forest walk on all but the windiest of days is actually quite calm. Snow piled up around the outside of a dwelling makes for incredible levels of insulation. It could be 30 in the air, but below the surface of a snowdrift, it's still much closer to freezing temperature. They never had electricity or modern conveniences, so they never worried about losing those. Their food was preserved as jerky or dried fruit, and their meats were either frozen in a far above-ground shelter, or smoked and kept in a root cellar. It was outage-proof. They ate every part of the animals they harvested. They were super good at extracting calories from stuff, so very little got wasted. Compare that to how much food we throw out. We use stuff like fiberglass and styrofoam and caulking. They used stuff like moss and mud and pitch, the incredibly sticky sap from pine trees, to block drafts and make warm housing. They were super clever about it. Way more people lived in a house, and with way less space than we get. There were very few seniors living alone, and those are usually the ones who die first in a brutal cold snap because there's nobody to share body heat with, and body heat's actually pretty amazing as a heat source. And if you got a 10 by 10 foot room to yourself, you were friggin' royalty. There's a lot more odds and ends, and this is just a starting list. Late edit. Thank you all for the various awards. Addressing a couple recurring themes from replies below. This is an analysis of small groups of primitive humans, when manufacturing businesses and stores didn't exist. There are absolutely variations and exceptions in various cultures, and not all apply 100% of the time, e.g. the wastefulness of mass buffalo slaughters where herds were stampeded over cliffs, which is a rather exceptional times of plenty rarity. Thanks to you for reading.